So this week we're going to get started on the Unit 1 project. In the book chapter that you're assigned to read, you're introduced to C. Wright Mills's concept of the sociological imagination. And in there, they get you thinking about how your first name may be connected to that. Um, so this is going to be the basis for our Unit 1 project. The project is ultimately going to be an edited video file, but you won't be ready to make that video for several weeks. So you'll build pieces over the next several weeks, and then in the last week of the unit, you'll be working on putting together that edited video project. You'll have more details and you'll get to see an example of it as we get closer to that. But for this week, I have 3 pieces broken out for you to work on. The first one is to watch a short video to think more about the sociological imagination. This first chapter gives you a brief introduction to it. It's a concept that will come up in the chapter we read next week and many other times throughout the semester. But I picked out one of many little videos to get you thinking some more about this concept. I also this week would like to have you journaling about your name-related experiences. Okay, so anything that comes to mind that has happened to you over the course of your life, related to your name, your first name specifically. Um, my first name is Naomi, and I was raised in the South at a time in which the name wasn't common, even though it's in the Bible. People had a hard time pronouncing it. People still have a hard time spelling it. If I go somewhere and they want to write my name on my coffee cup, for example, if I don't spell it, they often spell it incorrectly. Um, People would, in the South in particular, would say, "Do you say your name Naomi or Naomi?" Or they would offer other pronunciations. Um, so, those are some of the things that I might journal about. Growing up, I had a close friend, um, and her name was Amal, which is also the name of George Clooney's wife. And so, since George Clooney married someone with the name, it's become, I think, easier for people to hear, in a lot of ways. But when we were children, it was not an easy name for her to have. In addition to that, when we became old enough to get jobs, she and I went to apply for jobs together and we had to have our social security cards. And when her parents pulled hers out, she learned that in fact her name was spelled Anal instead of Amal on her social security card. And so that presented a problem because it's an official form of ID for a teenager who didn't have a driver's license yet. Um, and so that wouldn't match what she'd written on her application. And so, there are this kind of range of experiences that someone might have with their name. Um, some kids have the experience of growing up and being one of many in a class, and then they have to use their last name, right? So you might have known a Michael F and a Michael W or something like that. Those are the kinds of things I just want to have you start thinking and writing about. You're not going to turn in your journal work, so any format is fine. You can write it down on a piece of paper. You can type it up in a document file. Doesn't really matter. Just to have this piece in place for when you're ready to make your video. The third thing is to spend some time on the Social Security Administration website. Think about the fact that the Social Security Administration tracks first names and publishes trends in them. So I have a few things that I want you to do here. I'm going to just show you some of these. So this is the website. I want you first to look up your name, right? So just your first name, around the time of your birth. They don't have mine, so I'm just going to pick 1960 and later because I want you to see like about 10 years before you were born and later. And so if I look up my name, I see, okay, well, if I'm looking at about 10 years before I was born, um, my name actually becomes more popular around the time of my birth, and then kind of decreases in popularity before really growing again, right? So kind of just looking at the trend, and a wider bar means more people named that. And I can also just look at the ranks in terms of numbers, right? This is the rank in popularity out of all names, but this website I think only does the top 200 or so in a given year. Okay. So they tell you a little bit more information down here, and I might take some of those notes. Okay, so that's the first thing. I have a couple of notes here if your name doesn't come up at all. If you try these other things and you still don't get the name, then that's fine. That's what you write down, right? My name was not popular enough to have come up in the Social Security search at all. I'd also like you to look at the 20 most popular names in your year of birth. So if I go back here, popular names by year of birth, just type in your year of birth. This one's not mine. I'm just going to pick one and look at the top 20. Okay. And then I can see, okay, well, Jessica, Ashley, Amanda, Sarah, right? Just kind of taking a look at those names. You know, whatever may interest you about them. Oh, I know a lot of people with those names, or I don't know a lot of people with those names, or oh, that name that's number one popular, that's what I wished my name was when I was a kid, or that's the name I would like to give my child, something like that. If anything that interests you about it, I just want you to kind of take note of that stuff. And then I'd like you to take a look. It's this last one here about the most popular names in your year of birth in the state that you were born. Okay, so if you were not born in the United States, you could just look up New York or a state that you lived in if you lived in a different state previously. If you don't live in New York right now, and some of you may live in Connecticut or New Jersey, then pick those states. So that's here, right? So you could select your state and your year of birth. It only goes back to 1960. If you were born before that year, then you can just pick 1960, get as close as you can, right? And then again, just take a look at those most popular names, take notes on whatever interests you. I also wanted to point out that there's US territories here. So if you weren't born in the 50 United States, but in Puerto Rico. This one only goes back to 1998 though, unfortunately, so it may or may not capture you, or other territories. So if you were born in another US territory like US Virgin Islands or something, then you may take a look at that list there. Again, if your name is not in here, if your state is not in here, if your birth year is not in here, those are all things, just to jot down notes about. And again, I don't need you to turn in those notes. This is just information that you're starting to gather, because again, it's the first couple of pieces of the Unit 1 project, which you'll work on for several weeks before you're ready to get that video together. Okay. So reach out when you have any questions. Check in with me or with Abram, and let us know what you are confused about, what you're not sure about, what you're excited about. If you're ready to move on to the next stages, we can talk about those ahead of time. But I think these are enough pieces for most of you for now. Have fun with it.